Thank you so much for joining Dental Marketing Theory, a podcast by Gary Bird. In today's episode, Gary talks with Amber Nish. Gary and Amber chat about her dental journey, her climb to becoming the Chief Marketing Officer at Community Dental Partners, and how a Dove Beauty campaign changed her entire outlook. As always, please make sure to like, subscribe, share, and leave a comment, as all of those things really help to get the word out about dental marketing theory. Hope you enjoy today's show.
All right, we are live. Amber, it is so good to see you. I'm so thankful we finally got to get you on.
I know it feels like it took a while with all the holidays, but I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, one of the things that we've been doing, actually, just recently we had Evan on, and he did a great job as always. Is we have people kind of start off with their journey into dental and how people ended up in the dental space, and it's fascinating because everybody has a super unique story, and a lot of us ended up here on accident, right? If you're not a dentist, you probably didn't choose this career when you were younger. So I would love for you to walk through how you started off in dental and you know the back and forth that you had and how you ended up in the position that you have now.
Yeah, for sure. So there's no doubt that my career has been very accidental from the get-go, and then to add dental to that is for sure. I actually was a stay-at-home mom with 5 kids for the better part of my adulthood. Found myself as a single mom of 5 kids, and came to the area and was running an in-home daycare for most of that time so that I could stay home with my kids. They were all old enough to be in school at this point, and so I actually am good friends with Jody Evans, who we both know and adore, and she was the CMO for Community Dental Partners at the time. And she actually just said to me one day, "I think you would be really good at marketing. I think I have a job that you would be good at, and I'd like for you to come give it a try." And I resisted and said, "I haven't been working for 20 years. I can't come and do that for you. I don't know anything about marketing." But she, in her loving and firm way, looked at me and said, "Amber, if I could teach what you do inherently, sort of your intuition and how you show up in the world, I'd be a millionaire. I can teach you the rest of the stuff. We'll be fine." So I started at Community Dental Partners. It's been almost 8 years exactly now, as a community outreach manager for one of our individual practices. And was able to work with very ground level marketing, very going out to events and leading the team that was out connecting with patients, right, to get prospective patients to come to our practice.
Yeah, and so could you walk through that really quickly, because I know
Mm-hmm.
it's second nature to you because you guys understand that,
Mm-hmm.
but a lot of dental practices don't have community outreach and things like that. So could you walk me through what that looked like as a team and what exactly you were doing?
For sure. So the majority of the population that we work with is on Medicaid. We pride ourselves in working with the underserved community, and we knew that in order to connect with them, we needed to connect with them face to face. And so we wanted to go be in places where they were, where they felt comfortable, and we could build that relationship. And so we would go to school events, go to different partnerships that we call them, where like grocery stores or other locations we could be, where we could meet them face to face and help them build that trust, overcome the obstacles that often face the underserved community in getting dental care. And so we built really all of Smile Magic and the origins of Community Dental Partners around that marketing strategy, was get out in front of them, meet them where they are, help them build that trusting relationship, and then bring them into the practice. And so that was really what community outreach was for a good long time.
And you were there for 7 years?
So I was in directly into community outreach for about 3 to 4 of those years. And then just as the company grew, we knew we needed more corporate level support, right? That we would need to have more and more impact. And so I became the regional manager over community outreach, and then eventually became sort of the marketing director in order to pair the advertising, graphics, print needs, and then eventually roll in the digital needs. We started realizing our website was in dire need of an update. And so started taking those roles on. I actually then transitioned over to our call center director. We had a need at the time. And so Jody asked me to step in and take that on. And again, I had no idea how to run a group like that, but trusted her leadership. And so I stepped into that and was really able to see the other side of what happened to our patients after we brought them into marketing, right? So
Hmm.
I understood the lead generation that we had at the time. And now I was going to get to step in and understand that conversion process and how to take our patients through that experience. And so was able to do that for about a year as well.
What do you think, for somebody who's out there and maybe they run a couple practices and maybe they haven't had that experience either on one side or the other? What were
Mhm.
some revelations that you had when you were like, okay, I'm out here in the field, I'm just generating new patients, and now I'm actually catching these new patients and having to make sure
Mhm.
they come in and recare and those kind of things. What was the biggest thing that like shocked you when you walked into that environment?
Probably how hard it is to connect with patients. I think it's easy to, in the lead generation bucket, to think that that scheduling team is just lazy and they're not doing anything and they don't care about how hard you work to get that lead in, right? And to really be on that side of things and understand that those team members were working so hard to make all the phone calls and say all the right things and sort of sometimes clean up some messes that we might create in sending them a bad lead or things like that, and how important data and being able to track that activity really was on the scheduling side, and helping to understand just how heavy a load that was. It's just easy on the lead generation side sometimes to just think it's the only reason we're not getting more new patients isn't because we're not great at our jobs, it's because the scheduling team isn't great at their job, right? And so
Hmm.
getting to be on both sides and really empathize with the role that each played, and just how hard it is to work with human behavior. I mean, bringing patients in, you're just genuinely working with humans the entire time. And, just the complexity that they felt was not any different than what we felt on the lead generation side, and um, valued the benefit that both departments were able to bring,
That's great. And
which
so
is
now
exciting.
it is, and it really helps you see the whole picture because that
Hmm.
marketing, the biggest thing that I've noticed is when marketing hands off to operations, that's
Hmm.
where the most opportunities for breaking and misunderstanding of those two departments. So being on both sides is huge, and I think that gives you huge leg up in understanding what's actually going on. So how long were you in the call center and managing that?
I was in the call center for about a year before COVID hit, and then sort of became this jack of all trades, master of none at that point, where it was the call center pivoted, the marketing pivoted, everything just transitioned so fast overnight that I was running the call center from our support center, and then trying to help on the marketing side as well, just trying to take how are we going to communicate to patients. That was really the
Hmm.
core of how do we communicate to patients, how do we communicate to the public, and then stepping into and how do we now go digital community outreach, our entire marketing strategy overnight. We lost it, right? COVID, nobody wanted to go out and talk to
Because you
people
couldn't
in
go out.
public,
Yeah,
and
you couldn't go into the.
absolutely not.
Yeah.
We couldn't go to schools, there were no more events, right? So I had to kind of step back into marketing a little bit and help us figure out community outreach was a department that only knew how to do what they do, and so how do we transition. And so I was able to fulfill that role for about 6 months of kind of helping to support both. And then a little while after that, was given the opportunity to actually step in as the CMO for Community Dental Partners. So I've been doing that for about a year and a half.
Awesome. So that transition there, what were some, because obviously when you're in the call center and you're
Mhm.
managing, a group of people, and then now you're going to CMO and now you're really having to leverage your team and then also make your team interact with other departments in the way that
Right.
is efficient, and you're in the middle of COVID and you're adding digital because you didn't have digital before, so now you're adding that in. How did you handle that? What were some of the feelings that you were feeling, and what were some lessons that you learned?
Oh, goodness. I think the strongest feeling I was feeling was entirely overwhelmed and unqualified. But at the same time, it was the perfect time for me to step in because we were in a crisis, and that meant none of us knew what we were doing, right? It
Yeah.
wasn't like anybody that was sitting in the CMO chair before me was like, we've run a pandemic before, we've got this, we know how to do this.
Yeah.
So it was kind of the great equalizer in my sort of intuition and my I've done some Colby and other personality type work, and I am an intuitive behavior. And so it gave me the opportunity to go, if I have to lead and just make a quick decision, that's where I shine. And so it kind of helped that none of us knew what we were doing. And we just needed somebody who was like, well, I'll make a decision based on intuition. I had been able to run both departments. And so I think the ability that that gave me was to step in because as a CMO, I'm over both the marketing and the scheduling department report to me. And so that gave me the purview I needed to understand. All I needed to do was get the right geniuses in the room. And my job was just to lead them with new ideas and innovation. I was not needed to be the genius in any one,
One
you
field.
know, field. I just needed to find the right people and connect with them and have the courage to step in and make decisions when there wasn't a book for this, right? And so it was kind of the perfect storm for me to step into a leadership role because we kind of got to make it up as we went
Hmm.
along, and that's fairly comfortable for me. And so it was the perfect combination of experience and just how I show up in the world that made it work.
When did you get to a more, how long after COVID, right? Because some people are still dealing with these like up and down
Mm-hmm.
schedules and stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people, things are still just kind of wonky, right? Not the way it was pre-COVID.
That's
How
right.
how long did it take for you to really get a grasp on everything that you're seeing, and then start to be able to make decisions where I need to do this now because this is down or this is up, and
Mm-hmm.
when did that start to come together for you?
It was becoming the experience that I had in the call center was really helpful because that's where I really learned to use data to make to drive decisions. Because we had a lot more data on our scheduling team than we had in the marketing side. And so having that experience helped me to find a few key indicators. I didn't know all of it in depth, but I was coming to a few key indicators. Obviously, new patients is always going to be, right? Like that's your
Yeah.
final is like is new patients working. So being able to step into what should our goal be and how do we set that and how do we know what that should be and watching new patients, but also watching even the retention of those patients. So helping understand that was critical to me being able to take a grasp of this because there's data everywhere that we
Yeah.
do and don't understand in each bucket. But I was able to come at the top and just say, I know we don't have all the perfect answers, but if we can watch a few key metrics and a few key behaviors that support that, um, we can at least drive a good 80% of the conversation, right?
Yeah.
There's always going to be more detail that we wish we had. But that probably took me, I mean, I don't know because I feel like I'm always learning and always
Yeah.
evolving, but I felt like within 6 months we were able to go, we're back on the ground, we're back running, we can see that patients are coming back in and
And so
start to
we were still
grasp.
in we were still in COVID at that time, right? It
Hmm.
was still COVID
Hmm.
was going on, but now you're starting to get a grasp of just the
Hmm.
world that we were in, right? Because for a while there, if I remember correctly, it's been a while. It feels like COVID just hit like
Hmm. I
last year,
know.
but it's been a while. But those first 3 months were just absolutely insane, right? Like,
Absolutely.
yeah, those were like you didn't know up for down. It was like when you get flipped upside
Mm-mm.
down on those roller coasters and you're not sure if you're upside down or not. That's what it felt like. So
Hmm.
those first three, so it was about 3 months after that, then you
Hmm.
started to figure out, okay, this is what's happening and this is what direction I need to go. And if this happens, then I'll do this. And that's really good. So then
Hmm.
what do you, I know that Amber, you love taking on new things and love building new
Hmm.
things. What are you working on now that is, that you're excited about? And that's the new thing that you're tackling.
I think the new thing that we're tackling is building a system that we can support any entrepreneurial dentist who is coming to CDP to create a predictable and scalable patient acquisition and retention, right? So that's my big mission as sort of the leader of the marketing team. And that's the passion that I have. And so, how can we support not just our Smile Magic doctors or our Family Smiles doctors, but now that the company is growing, we're bringing in partners. They come with their own brands and their own nuances and their own clinical capabilities. How do we build a system that we can bring anybody into and we can help them get patients in the door and retain their patients? So it's a pretty big system. It's a pretty big ask. But that's really what's driving me right now as a leader. As CDP tries to grow, it's going to be critical that I can grow with them and support the brands that we're bringing into the company.
That's awesome. So yeah, so all these different brands are coming in at you. You have
Hmm.
different
Hmm.
avatars, different operating systems that people are
Hmm.
operating off of. So as you're starting to work through that, what are some things that are surprising you about that you're going, man, this is either cool or this is I didn't realize that this was going on. What are some things that
Hmm.
are that you're working through?
I think what's been a little bit surprising is that everybody struggles to get good marketing data, right? Like every partner has come with more or less than we currently have. And I know we have, I've felt our own constraints. I just want to be able to say with every single patient, where'd they come from? How'd they get to us? How much did they spend, right? What systems did they go through? And it's just not as clean as that. And so realizing that everyone feels that same pain and has felt those same challenges has been a little bit somewhat surprising to me and also then reassuring. But the other thing is just, I think I've been a little bit surprised and excited about how hungry our clinical leaders are for quality marketing support. A lot of times there can be a discontented relationship between clinician and marketing.
Yeah.
And then you throw ops kind of right in the middle of that, right? But in meeting with these clinical leaders, their passion and their respect and gratitude for marketing and what we do as a whole has been both exciting and a little bit surprising. And helping to connect with them is what's going to help me build the system. And they are going to work with their clinicians to build the system, right? So we're really getting in lockstep with one another. And I think that's driving the continued passion is just how open these leaders have been to marketing support.
As you bring in, that's a great. I love that last comment, and it actually sparks an idea in my head. So as you work through
Mhm.
this, so you're working through with a brand new office. You don't have to give us
Mhm.
any specific, but or even a group of offices, and you're starting to work with them. Where are you seeing the biggest restraints? Is it in marketing and you being able to plug into their operations? Is it in operations being able to adopt you, or is it in
Mhm.
that clinical side of making sure that there's alignment all the way through from that clinical position?
I think the biggest constraints will be operations and just this everybody comes from their own purview and getting everybody's schedules to where they can be um, they've got to be a little bit predictable, right? We need to create some kind of system where everybody doesn't get to run their schedule, each practice manager with the doctor running everybody's schedule as they see fit, right? So it's really that merger of the operations and getting it up to where we can create some systems that will help support. And I think being able to connect that with different ways of sort of how we've always done things. Change is hard for people.
Yeah.
It's something I love and I'm super passionate about, but people at the operations teams and at the practice level, that's a pretty reoccurring role. And so that change management to something new is just hard. And so that's probably where we'll run into the biggest
So is it like
opportunity to grow.
like give me an example? Are you talking about like so you're bringing on 10 practices
Hmm.
and practice 1 schedules like this and they use this software and you practice 2 does this and you're like, "Hey, we got to pick one of these cuz we can't
Right.
clinical can't work. We can't teach it. We can't." Is that what you're
Hmm.
referring to?
Absolutely, yeah. It's just the nuance that each individual practice, maybe when you're smaller and you only have 3 or 4, maybe 5, up to even 10 practices, these are teams that are recognizing, yeah, we've all been running this kind of on our own and it's working well enough, but for them to scale and grow and understand how marketing or any of our DSO supported
Yeah.
groups, it could be accounting, it could be IT, right? There's got to be some standardization that comes in. And so I think that shift from going and learning what they're doing, right? Because they could be doing something that would be super amazing and valuable. Let's go learn that and apply it. And then, kind of what we've built and the system we've built, how do we marry those together and help people come along for that journey?
I love that last statement that you're walking in with questions,
Hmm.
curious, right? That maybe you
Hmm.
have all the answers, and I can learn from you, and that really helps start the conversation, right? Because they're going to be happy to share that with you, and then how do we marry that? Because I think I've seen a lot of people go in, and you've probably seen it too, where
Hmm.
they just scorch earth it, right? Like, hey, let's just
Right.
burn it all down and light the town on fire. That usually doesn't end well, even if you have
Yeah.
the best system in the world, right? So it's really important that I think what you said there is key in being able to get people on board and really working as a team rather than working against each other. So a quick
Hmm.
jumping subjects on you. So
Sure.
when you were in the middle of COVID, what were some things that you were doing that were more tactical? Like, we're
Hmm.
obviously you guys set up all your digital side. But
Hmm.
what were, like, with your community outreach or things that you had to get creative with in COVID to really make things work?
I think one of the first things that we had to do was we really implemented our mass texting platform, and we brought in support for that so
Mm,
that we could quickly relay a message to our patients or potential patients. So that was one of the first things we did because every day it felt like the world was changing, right? So we needed to be able to communicate with a lot of people very quickly. And so that's one of the first things we did was we scaled our communication capabilities with
what did you
mass
do there?
texting.
Like,
And
what were you doing before that?
I'm going to be honest, we weren't doing texting really when I came on as the PCC director. That was something that we brought in. So we brought in a vendor to come and help build that platform for us. And so we had some um, automated messages that were going out, like with review management and things like that, but you couldn't reply back and we couldn't move as quickly as we wanted to. So we brought in a vendor that could give us two-way texting capabilities that we could mass text, but also then when patients texted us back, we could take action on that. And so that was a pivot that we made as our favorite word of 2020. And then the next thing we did was to replace the lead generation. Once we knew as a company we were ready to take on more new patients that weren't just coming to us because they found us and they were in clinical need, right? But now it was time to spend marketing dollars and bring leads in. That's when we shifted to our digital marketing platform and we brought in pay per click. That's how we met. Was you came in and helped
Mhm.
us build that and kind of launch that from the ground up. And so we wanted to make sure we could communicate effectively first.
Mm,
And then when we were ready to take on new patients and spend marketing money, we shifted our community outreach dollars because we still weren't able to do that
yeah,
I mean, we're still struggling with that to this day. Like we'll try to bring it back and then COVID resurges and we have to back it off, right?
yeah.
And so we're really trying to build the digital pay-per-click advertising strategy pretty strongly.
So then, one of the and you guys are spread over a big area, right? So you're in
Hmm.
Texas, and
Hmm.
so you can have one city that's down and shut down with
Right.
COVID, and another city that's open, right?
Hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
And
We
so
did.
how do you deal with that from, like, a staffing standpoint? So you have a pretty large team that reports to you. Are they all going to the office? Are you doing some remote? Are you doing how are you tackling that?
Unfortunately, with COVID, we did end up having to just lay off the community outreach team. That was kind of the skill set that we had at the time, and we didn't have any other plan at that moment. So we did have to lay off the community outreach team. The scheduling team, we actually were able to move them all to work from home. And so they were able to really take the communication. And when a practice went down, we still needed just as many schedulers because we had to still be
Cancel.
able to communicate with
Yep.
patients because we would have, you think about it, you've got patients on the board from 6 months ago before COVID existed, right? And so we still have to communicate with those patients. So we didn't see a lot of fluctuation on the scheduling team side, whether the location was open or closed, because the communication demand was still really high. We were
Hmm.
rescheduling. Right? We couldn't abandon any patient.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of the strategy that we implemented was at the time. And
And then
then
how
we've rehired as
How
needed.
was how was the going from managing people who are in an office to
Mhm.
managing people who some are in an office, some aren't? Was it a huge change for you? Was it not a big deal? Like, what did you experience as you worked through that?
It was a huge change for me because I am a people person, right? So
Mm,
I connect with people, I communicate verbally, I show up with a whiteboard and I'm ready to go, right? And so for me, it was pretty difficult. For the team that manages that staff, they made that shift beautifully and they navigated with our IT department. Um, Thankfully, we have some amazing phone software that we could literally know whether or not that person had been on the phone for 2 minutes too long,
yeah.
right? So it helped that we had a very reoccurring system and we had a software and a system that reported to us what was happening. So the shift for the scheduling team in particular was easier because we had a great software that helps tell us everything that's happening with the patients. We knew how many texts went out. We knew, like we really could see the output of their efforts. And so for that team, it was great that the team did our scheduling director did a great job leading through that.
Yeah, I know I've done that switch before. I used to be in office and we moved out of office, and it's different, right? It's a totally different experience. There's some huge pluses to it. You get a lot of time back. You don't have to commute. But you do lose some of that connection and knowing like you don't know every day if someone's feeling good or not feeling good, right? Like you just don't, you have to read in between the lines a little bit more, and that can be tricky and tough, especially when you're dealing with people with sick kids and different
Right.
things going on at home. What
Yeah,
what
for sure.
what were some of the things culturally that you guys had baked in that helped you make this radical transition through COVID and adding you to leadership and changing a lot of the systems? What culture anchors did you guys have that were like this? Because we had this, I heard you. The reason I'm asking this is because I heard you say we had some software that really helped us, right? What were some of the things culturally that you had baked in that helped you move through that?
Well, I think the biggest culture thing here at Community Dental Partners is our 9 pillars, right? And so culturally, our top 3 are humility, gratitude, and personal honesty and responsibility. And so for me, humility was the number one. I had to show up as a leader who had just been put in a relatively high level position and still show up and say, but that doesn't mean I know what I'm doing about all things. I'm not the expert. I need you to step in and help me, right? And give each of my teams permission to inform me and not have to be the smartest person in the room. And I think our culture really drove. We're also a very innovative and entrepreneurial company. Um, if you've, and anyone who's met Emmett knows
Yeah,
that. And so our ability to bring people into that and our culture of curiosity, and if we don't know, go ask, go find out, and trusting different team members to take that individual responsibility and run with it, and then come back and help us as leaders develop the next strategy was, I think, probably the driving force of the culture that enabled us to work from home, enabled us. And then again, that personal honesty and responsibility of like, what you're responsible for. If you have a sick kid, they come first, take care of them. Let us know how you're going to ensure that your responsibilities get met, right? So trusting our team to adapt. Most of our team, I mean, many of that team is moms,
yeah,
women. We have a lot of women in our company, and they became the primary caretakers, right? School got shut down. They had
yeah.
to navigate. I have to make money, but I have to take care of my kids' school. And so that trust of that personal honesty and responsibility, I think those core pillars helped us make any transition we need to, and is what drives us to be able to continue to grow as well.
I love that. I know that you guys have a very much people first culture where you
Mm-hmm.
want to take care of your people and you want them to be healthy and happy. And that's something I learned a lot just being around you guys and seeing that and living it out every single day and working through things. So I love that about you guys. What are some of the things that you're really excited about this year? As 2022 is just unfolding, you're kind of seeing the landscape of what's going on. What are you getting excited about that you're gonna look back from a year now that you're gonna be pumped that you're involved with?
I am actually really excited. We brought in, the start of 2021, we had no partners, and we closed 2021 with four, 4 or 5, I think. Now I can't remember. I think it's 5. And so I'm excited now that we've
And
brought them
partners
on to,
are separate organizations, right, with multiple locations
right?
each. Okay.
Yep. So Community Dental Partners, we expanded, and now we've brought in groups that have small DSOs or small groups that wanted the support of the platform that we had built. And so we've partnered with those groups to just help continue to grow the company and help grow the vision that they started. And so I'm excited to take what we built and then merge with what they've built and make something amazing out of it this year for a wider patient scope. I mean, I'm really passionate about our patients and our people. And so being able to know that we're going to bring together great minds and connect an even bigger audience and serve an even wider group of patients is really exciting for me this year to integrate with those teams and share what we've done and learn from what they've done, and then see kind of the amazing system that will come out of that. I'm pretty excited about that one.
That's cool. So where do you now, where on the flip side of that, where do you see some either heartaches or just potential huge opportunities where dental may be lagging behind in certain areas for this year?
I think dental is definitely lagging behind in the software needs and the needs that we have to connect all of the systems that we're building, right? Like we just kind of run like all these little independent ships. And so I think the pain point is we're excited about connecting them, but do we have the support to do that and to watch the patient journey and tell the data that we need to tell to inform decisions and make it scalable? I think I worry about our ability to digitally. I know digital marketing is so critical for us. And so I think that weighs heavily on me is that's not something I have tons of experience in. And so I have to rely on other teams and other folks to help me. And I know that that's so critical. We've built on this community outreach. I think that's just really a no more. I don't know that we're ever going to get back to that, right? And so I think those two things of just do we have the software and the support that we need to grow and scale and measure our activities?
Yeah.
And then do we have on my own team the digital capabilities that we need to pivot from a community outreach strategy to a digital strategy and be equally as successful at connecting with the people who need us the most?
Yeah, I see that too. I was on a call yesterday and someone was showing me a piece of software and it was so cool,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like it's just amazing what it did.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of stopped them and I said, look, this is amazing. Like I think people should use this. But here's the problem that I'm running into. I can name 6 other amazing softwares that everybody else should be using as well.
Mm-hmm.
And if they have to log in to those, yours 3 or 4 times a day and theirs 3 or 4,
Mm-hmm.
that means every 15 minutes you're going to be logging into a piece of software as a team member.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that, like, people are dealing with that. And so it's like, not only how do I stack my software, but how do I
Mm-hmm.
actually, humanly speaking, use
Right.
it at each department, and then picking which one, because this one does this but it doesn't do this, and this one doesn't do that but it does this. And so you have to pick those, and then how does it stack in, and then you get into like a year implementing it, and then you
Right.
find out it doesn't work right the way that you thought it
Mm-hmm.
was.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really, dental just hasn't crossed that bridge. Like, and I think a lot of it goes back to the PMS and getting
Yep.
actual data at the gate and getting
Mm-hmm.
everybody to enter it the same, and then having the PMS be able to do that. But I totally agree with you. It's really hard. I feel bad as I look at even the stuff that we develop. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
how can we play ball better with these 7 other people to make life easier for the end user?
Right.
Because it's just not and the individual vendors typically aren't going to think of that, right? Because they're just thinking
Right.
about the problem that they're solving. So do you feel like that's going to be solved in 2022, or is it just like, hey, this is just where the big opportunity is?
I definitely think we're on our way. I think that as DSOs and then healthcare management as a whole is expanding, which I think even that has grown substantially since COVID with these small independent practices where the clinician was trying to be all things, right? I'm
Yeah.
a business owner, I'm running accounting, I'm running, right? Things kind of quickly went to a more centralized support. So healthcare management as a whole is growing as a support system. And I think the dental support organization or the DSO structure is growing as well. I mean, it feels like every other week we're seeing expansion and growth of DSOs merging with other companies. And so I think that because of that, these software teams and the developers and the industry leaders will have to create systems that will support DSOs in scaling and helping at an enterprise level. I do think it's getting better. We're starting to see some of that unfold. We're excited about some groups that we're starting to work with and testing to see if
That's cool. Yeah.
they're on the front edge of this one. But I do think it's going to get better as just healthcare in general seems to be taking that approach of a more centralized, supported, let the doctor go be the doctor,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll centralize the rest of it. It's more efficient, it's more scalable, and it does push developers to solve bigger problems
Yeah.
rather than individual little app for this and app for that, right? You're like, we're running 10 apps at once and we still can't
Still can't
solve the
figure it out.
problem.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm seeing too. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So what I know, one problem that everybody's facing, and it's been a while since I've talked to Jackie about this, but
Mm-hmm.
so I'm curious of what your thoughts of where it's at. How are you guys, like, in January 2022? How are you dealing with recruiting? How's that going? How's it feeling? What's going on there?
Yep, I think you're right. Everybody is feeling the pain. I think we've done, the recruiting team has done a great job. They've connected on Again, how do they build their digital strategy? They were just as ground level, guerrilla level marketing as community outreach was. We went into schools and we met with people and we were able to really recruit from building those relationships. COVID shut all that down. So they had to create a digital recruiting platform just like we did from a patient acquisition side. So they've worked really hard to make that really robust, and they actually collaborated beautifully with the marketing team on understanding who is our ideal avatar and how do we speak to them directly. So we've created materials that help them understand the town and where they could live potentially and what their life could look like, right? So that we're really helping them understand we see you as not just an individual clinician and why you'll be happy at this practice, but we need to see you as a whole, whether you have a family or you want to come here and build your life. What is it that you want and how can we help you from a bigger picture and not just your day-to-day life in the office? But the recruiting team's done a great job of working to see this as a whole, and then they're also creating lots of educational content because they know that dental school does a great job of teaching you how to be a dentist.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot of other stuff that they're left to figure out, and
Yeah.
nobody's telling them what to do. And so by doing that, they're building a great platform, and we're starting to see they're starting to be able to fill those roles a little bit quicker. It's still a struggle. That's
Yeah.
definitely still a pain point.
Mm-hmm.
But it's working, and the machine that they're building has been. Jackie's done a great job leading through that, and collaborating to get the needs met. And I think that they've come on to something really special by recognizing the clinician as a person and not just how he or she is going to perform in a practice, and then building a recruiting platform based on that.
That's great. And then so they're going through the same growing steps that you are, right? So now they're going to support these other organizations that decide, hey, we want help with recruiting as well.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Which has been one of the first things they come and ask for, right? So marketing's a little bit further down so we've been able to kind of sit back and let IT, HR, right, accounting, those are the big three that they want solved pretty quickly as partners when they come in. And recruiting is definitely probably one of their top, like, can we come and help them? And the answer is yes. And Jackie's and Tiffany have led their team and really been able to, we're excited because we've just signed a recruit for one of our new partners. And that was a big deal to be able to say, yes, the platform is working for the partners that we've brought in as well. So they're doing a remarkable job.
I've noticed that as I talk to people, everybody's like, hey, we need more new patients. And one of the things I'll do to gauge if they actually need more new patients is when can you see them? If I called today, how long would it take? And we're seeing right now the average office from just the practices that we have visibility into, their average time to appointment's about 5 days, which is too long, right? If a new patient's going to reach out and call. So it takes me back to then, okay, recruiting, we need to get more hygienists, more doctors, more dental assistants. And it's tricky because there's only so many of those, right? So, and everybody needs them. And from what I can tell, and I haven't seen any official data on this, but it seems like we lost some people, right? So it seems like some people left the industry and got into other fields or other things that may be similar verticals, but just not doing the in-office stuff. So we have less people, more people are growing, more people are wanting dentistry, but we have less people. So from my end, I actually just did an interview with the dean of dental at UCLA. And we were working through some of this of how long is it going to take until we kind of catch back up with these different verticals. So that it's definitely not an easy, like, hey, this is just going to be fixed. But I think you guys you're approaching it the right way, and you're definitely tackling it from the right angle.
Yeah, I think we had to shift to, for years we had plenty of clinicians. That was never an issue. Staff was easy. When one left, we could just replace them pretty quickly. And as much as patient acquisition is a challenge, the bigger challenge right now is competing in this recruiting market from staff at the practice level, even operational staff, to the clinicians and the hygienists. You're right. And so really shifting to marketing to those teams, taking what we had built in marketing at the patient flow level and supporting on how can we help get you the right materials and the right thought process to recruit staff and doctors, which we just had not had to do before.
No
We
one
were
in
just
dental.
competing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no one in dental did. Before, it was the biggest obstacle in dental recruiting was, how am I going to sort through all these resumes?
Hmm. Hmm.
Right? I got 300 resumes for this position. I have to kind of weed through all of them. How do
Hmm.
I do that effectively? And so, yeah, it's a massive shift. And again, I think this is really going to separate people, because if you had a good culture and you have a good team, right, and then you have, maybe even if you don't have the systems, but you start to recognize, hey, we need to build out these systems,
Hmm.
you can be so far ahead, because a lot of people haven't even got to the place of, hey, what is our culture, or what is the, and so now it makes it that much harder to catch up. So I think,
For
again,
sure.
you guys are doing a great job there. Question for you, I always ask this question to all of our guests: what is
Hmm.
your most impactful marketing campaign on your life? Not like one that you ran in the office, but something that influenced you.
I have to say, I think the one that I always go back to was the Dove Every Woman campaign. For as a woman who was often being marketed to, products were always using people that just didn't look like me or my friends or anybody that we recognized. It was always find the model to sell our broom. So you've got this woman in heels like vacuuming her kitchen, and we're like, none of us look like that, right? And so I remember when that campaign came out, and it felt like, wait, that one looks like me and she looks like my friend, and sort of just showing the value of the everyday woman who, from a marketing strategy, is a high volume of the buyers of most any product,
Yeah.
right? And so that shift to really understanding that when I know my avatar, and I know that my avatar for this product is the everyday woman, this wasn't a high end product, it was just the majority of the population of women trying to run their lives and their homes and their families. Connecting with that group by showing them in the product line was very impactful for me, and was helped me to always remember, like, think about who I'm trying to connect with and show up where they are, rather than trying to show a perfect picture of. So, we talk about when we were running, doing a photo shoot for some of our Small Magic websites, we were intent on, we want real people. We want real kids that are messy and imperfect. And we didn't want like all of the moms to show up with their kids and like their matching polos, and, because they were going to do a photo shoot. So they had
Yeah.
to look really nice. I'm like, no, when that mom who's sitting struggling with her baby crying and her kid that may or may not have a toothache looks at our website, I want her to see herself,
Yeah.
not a model. And I think that campaign really impacted me in that way and gave me permission to realize the impact that just connecting with people where they are is far more important than selling an ideal that feels untouchable to people.
Yeah. Agreed. And do you still buy their products?
I actually do.
There you go. It
Funny
worked
enough,
then.
I do.
That's
It did
awesome.
work. They've got a lifetime customer. I do.
That is that's awesome. Well, thank you,
Yeah,
Amber. This has been so good. As you know, we're both dental geeks. I didn't even get
we
into the
are.
technical stuff, because people would have tuned us out right away. But a lot of these topics are so crucial, and honestly, it's a lot of the same things that we talk about. But you're one of the best at doing it, and you really are a genuine leader. And I've personally have learned so much from you. So I thank you for taking the time to come on today and let others just pick a little bit out of your brain and out of your day today.
Well, thank you. I appreciate being on here. I pride myself on learning from people everywhere I go, and your team has come and taught me and my team a whole lot. And I love sharing what you're doing, sharing this knowledge with other industry leaders. The podcast has been a lot of fun, and I'm excited to see what's next for all of us. There's just nothing but growth on the horizon. So I'm excited to participate in it and be a part of the fun.
Amen. Amen. Lots of opportunities everywhere.
Always.
Thanks, Amber.